In a tiny little farm lived a big pink sow with her 3 little piglets. Each of the piglets had a name. One was called Pinky, because he was very, very pink indeed. Another was called Gnasher, because he always gobbled up his food. And the last little piglet was called Porky, because he was chubby and round. Soon the time came for the little piglets to leave the farmyard, and one day Pinky, Gnasher and Porky kissed their mother goodbye and set out in search of a new home. Pinky came to a bale of straw lying in a field, and he decided it would make a fine home. With nimble trotters, Pinky began to weave the straw around a framework of twigs until he had a fine house to live in. Gnasher, who had wandered a little further on, came to a heap of sticks piled by a hedge. Thinking that they would make a fine house for him to live in, Gnasher set about arranging the sticks in a square. Soon the sticks had been made into a perfect little house. It even had a sloping roof. Porky had wandered even further than his 2 brothers, and he eventually came to a mound of bricks that lay by the side of a field. And with great skill, for a piglet that is, he began to build a fine, solid house. The old sow had often told her little piglets stories of a big bad wolf who lived in the forest. The wolf liked to eat many things, but most of all, he loved little pink piglets. As the sun went down, each little piglet settled himself down in his little house and went to sleep. No sooner had Pinky set his head down on a cushion of straw than there came a tap, tap, tapping at the door.
"Let me into your little straw house,"
cried a gruff but not unkindly voice. It was the big bad wolf, hoping to deceive the little pig into opening the door.
"Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin,"
replied the little piglet.
"Then I shall huff and I shall puff and I'll blow your house down,"
cried the big bad wolf in a much gruffer tone. The big bad wolf filled his lungs full of air, clasped his paws behind his back, and blew and blew and blew until the little house of straw trembled and shook and finally fell to pieces. Into the middle of the pile of straw leapt the wolf, and he gobbled up the little piglet. Licking his lips after such a fine meal, the big bad wolf set off across the fields in search of more food, and he came to Gnasher's little house made of twigs. Gnasher was fast asleep on a bed of grass when the big bad wolf tapped at the door.
"Let me into your little house of twigs,"
cried the wolf in a gruff but not unkindly voice, hoping to deceive the second little pig. Waking with a start, Gnasher called out in alarm,
"Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin will you come into my little house of twigs, you nasty wolf!"
"Then I shall huff and I shall puff and I'll blow your house down,"
shouted the wolf angrily. Drawing in a great breath, the big bad wolf suddenly blew it all out again in a rush of wind that knocked the little house of twigs to the ground. In leapt the wolf and gobbled up the second little piglet. After a second fine meal that evening, the wolf slunk away across the fields in search of even more good things to eat. Across the fields he went until he came to a little house made of bricks. The wolf's great ugly nose twitched as it caught the scent of yet another little piglet, and he tapped gently on the door.
"Let me into your little house of bricks,"
called the wolf in a gruff but not unkindly voice. Perhaps he could deceive this little piglet into opening the door for him, for the huffing and puffing was beginning to make him feel very tired. Porky, who was the wisest of the 3 little pigs, woke up when he heard the tapping on the door, and he called out,
"Who's there?"
"A poor forest creature who seeks shelter from the cold chill of night,"
replied the big bad wolf, with a little less kindliness in his voice.
"Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin does anyone enter my little house of bricks,"
called Porky.
"Then I shall huff and I shall puff and I'll blow your house down,"
replied the big bad wolf angrily. The big bad wolf gathered in his breath, drew himself back, and blew. But the little brick house stood firm. Again the big bad wolf drew in a deep breath of air. But this time he moved closer to the little brick house before blowing, and he huffed and he puffed and he puffed and he huffed, but still the little brick house stood firm. With one last great effort, the big bad wolf drew in the biggest breath ever, and he blew and he blew and he blew, but still he could not blow down the little house made of bricks. The wolf, being a very cunning creature, and a hungry and greedy one at that, climbed onto the roof of the little house and peeped down the little brick chimney. The third little piglet, however, heard the big bad wolf clambering onto the roof of his little house, and he quickly lit a fire in the grate. The fire roared up the chimney, and just as the big bad wolf began to climb down the little chimney, the flames licked round his legs, and with a mighty leap and a terrible roar of pain, he fell off the roof and lay dead on the ground. The little piglet called Porky ran out of his little brick house with a long, sharp carving knife, and he slit open the big bad wolf. So greedy had the wolf been when he ate the other two little piglets that he swallowed them in one big gulp, and they were still alive and safe in his tum. As the third little piglet slit open the big bad wolf, out popped Pinky and Gnasher. The three little pigs made a huge cauldron of stew from the big bad wolf, and they lived for the rest of their days in the little brick house.
Why is that little boy crying? Because he's lost his little doggie.
Oh well, is my little dog gone? Oh where can he be? With his ears cut short and his tail cut long. Oh where is he?
Batter cake, baker's man. Bake me a cake as fast as you can. Break it and pat it and mark it with B, and toss it up high for baby and me.
Pease pudding hot, pease pudding cold, pease pudding in the pot, 9 days old. Some like it hot, some like it cold, some like it in the pot, 9 days old. Oh, I went down south for to see my South sing Polly Wolly Doodle all the day. My Sally am a pretty gal, sing Polly Wolly Doodle all the day. Farewell, my fairy fair. Oh, I'm off to Louisiana for to see my Susiana, singing Polly Wolly Doodle all the day. Polly Wolly Doodle all the day.
Once upon a time there was a little boy who was given the most wonderful present for his birthday. It was a box of tin soldiers. There were no less than 25 soldiers in the box, and they were all brothers. They had been made, you see, from the same old large tin spoon. Oh, what a marvellous present! Cried the boy as he took the soldiers out of their box. How fine they look! Then, as he set out his tin soldiers, the boy saw that one of the soldiers had only one leg. But he can stand as firmly as the others, he said, so I'll leave him here beside the castle. The castle was made of cardboard. In front of it was a shining lake with swans on it and a row of neat green trees. What did it matter that the lake was really a mirror and the swans were made of wax? To the one-legged tin soldier, however, the prettiest thing of all was the dancing girl who stood balanced on one leg at the castle gates. She was also cut out of cardboard, but her dress was of a most wonderful softness, and there was a shining gold star at her waist. Oh, how beautiful she is, sighed the tin soldier. Then he thought that perhaps she too had lost a leg, for he didn't know that, being a dancer, she could balance on one foot, and he grew even more fond of her. I cannot ask her to be my wife, the tin soldier said to himself. She lives in a castle. I've only a box. But perhaps I can get to know her. And with that, he took up a position behind a funny old tobacco jar. From where he stood stiff and straight, he had a very good view of the dancing lady. When it was time for bed, his brothers were put back in the box, but the little tin soldier was not visible, and so he was left behind on the table. In the morning, the boy found the tin soldier still standing stiff and straight, and he put him on the window ledge. Suddenly, without warning, the window flew open, and down fell the tin soldier head first. Down, down, down he dropped, spinning round and round as he fell. The boy rushed downstairs and out into the street to search for the tin soldier. He didn't want to lose one of the set. The little tin soldier could have called out, "Here I am," but he did not. Soldiers in uniform never cry out, he thought, and he stayed very still and quiet. At last the boy went indoors again, sad because he had only 24 tin soldiers left to play with. "How big and lonely the world is out here," the tin soldier said to himself after the boy had gone. "How tiny I must be." Though he was afraid, he did not show it. Then it began to rain, and soon his smart red and blue uniform was shinier than ever with the splashes of rain. As soon as the rain stopped, along came 2 ragged little boys. They spotted the tin soldier at once. "Look!" cried one. "It's a tin soldier. Let's give him a sail." And they made a paper boat out of an old sheet of newspaper and put the soldier in it. The brave tin soldier didn't blink an eye, but he wondered to himself what would happen next as the boat sped along, and he wished that the lovely dancing girl might be beside him. The boat tossed from side to side as it rushed along. Then it started going round and round in circles before it finally shot into a long, dark tunnel of water. This made the soldier feel quite seasick, but he stood still and stiff and straight, and he kept both eyes in front in the manner of all good soldiers. The water tunnel was a drain that ran under the road. It happened to be the home of several fierce water rats. As soon as they spied the little soldier in his paper boat, they wanted to know about him.
Stop there, stop.
They ordered harshly.
We want to see your passport.
The biggest of the water rats demanded. "But I have no passport," said the tin soldier.
Got no passport? Good. You got no passport.
Oh, and how glad he was when the current carried him out of the reach of their long, sharp teeth. The dark water swept him along faster and faster. Whatever's going to happen next, the little tin soldier thought. He saw ahead of him a patch of light. There was a loud rushing noise, and the boat was whirled into the deep waters of the canal. The brave soldier held himself as straight as he could, but his boat was sinking underneath him. Soon he was up to his chin in water. "Never again shall I see my sweet lady," he told himself when the boat began to fall apart. "Nothing can save me now." He cried as he saw the gaping mouth of a huge fish waiting to receive him. But how black it was inside that fish! He held himself as stiff as though he had been on guard duty. After a few moments, the fish began leaping this way and that, thrashing the water with its tail, for it was caught on a hook. Soon it lost its strength to fight any more.
Ah!
Cried the old fisherman as he began to pull strongly on his line.
I've caught a big fish here. I'll take it to the market right away. It'll fish a good price.
And now, here comes the oddest part of the story. The fish was bought by the cook who worked in the little boy's house. As soon as she began cutting up the fish, she struck something hard inside. "Come quickly," she called to the little boy. "Here's a very strange thing." And she pulled out the one-legged tin soldier. "It's mine! It's mine!" cried the little boy joyfully. He began to clap his hands with joy at having found his tin soldier again. The boy put his long-lost soldier on the shelf above the fire so that he could dry quickly. And from there the soldier saw all his old friends. How his heart pounded when his eyes fell upon the prettiest dancing girl. "She's just as beautiful as I remember her," he told himself as he stared down at her. "Why, it's just as though I've never been away." Stiff and straight stood the soldier. His heart beat all the faster when he saw that the dancing lady was looking at him. She remembers, he told himself, and he felt proud in a humble kind of way that he'd been through so many adventures. The next day, some school friends came to see the little boy, and one of them took hold of the brave little tin soldier and threw him into the fire. Nobody knew why. Shortly afterwards, the door blew open, and a draught lifted out the pretty dancing lady right off her feet and tossed her into the golden flames, straight into the arms of the brave, faithful tin soldier, who was slowly melting. and they burned together in a blaze of golden light.
Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye. 24 blackbirds were baked in a pie, and when the pie was open, the birds began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to put before the king? The king was in his counting house, counting out his money. The queen was in her parlour, eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden, hanging out the clothes, when down came a blackbird and pecked off her nose.
Mother Duck was sitting on her eggs. She'd been there for a long time, and already she was beginning to wonder if her babies were ever going to hatch out. Suddenly, one by one, her eggs cracked, and the newborn little ducklings entered the world. Only one last egg remained unhatched, and it was by far the largest. Just as the newborn ducklings were trying out their legs, the last big egg suddenly hatched, and out popped the last duckling. "Quack, quack," said Mother Duck. "How ugly this one is, and how different from all the others. Quack, quack, quack." He was very ugly, a very ugly duckling indeed, and all his little brothers and sisters laughed at him. Even before he'd learned to swim, the ugly duckling learned what it was like to feel unwanted. He was so unhappy because everywhere he went with his brothers and sisters, other animals would call him horrible names and say how ugly he was. One day, feeling very miserable, the ugly duckling decided to run away because no one seemed to like him. Off he went over the fields and through the woods until he reached the marshes. He was so tired that he soon fell fast asleep among the tall reeds. Next morning, when the ugly duckling woke up, some wild ducks that lived in the marshes were sitting staring at him. "Well, who are you?" they asked. "Why are you so ugly?" The ugly duckling tried to make friends with them, but they all just laughed at him. That evening, with a tear in his eye, the ugly duckling left the marshes and went into the woods. It was a very cold and windy night, and the poor ugly duckling was very cold and hungry. He journeyed a long way through the woods until, up ahead of him, he saw a farmer's house. The farmer and his little daughter were very kind to the duckling. They rescued him from the cold, windy night and took him into the warm house. They wrapped him in a nice warm blanket and gave him lots of food. But the farmer's wife was not so kind. She thought the ugly duckling would make a very nice dinner, and she planned to make him into a duck pie. Sensing the danger, the little ugly duckling jumped out of an open window and ran back into the woods. It had been snowing, and the ugly duckling kept slipping over. Even the water in the nearby pond had turned to ice. Too young to fly away to a warmer place, the little ugly duckling nestled into a bushy hedge and fell fast asleep. Days and weeks passed, till one morning the ugly duckling woke to see a bright blue sky above him, and the sun was shining. It was the first day of spring. He stretched his wings, and to his surprise he found that he could fly. He soon found himself soaring across the sky, over the woods and forests, until he landed by the side of a beautiful lake. He stopped by the lake to have a drink from the cool, clear water. As he was drinking, some beautiful, huge white birds with long, slender necks joined him. He was very frightened. He didn't think they'd like a little ugly duckling drinking from their clear blue lake. As they came closer, he lowered his head in shame. Suddenly, the biggest of the slender-necked creatures spoke to him. He said, "My, what a very nice swan you are. Where have you come from?" "A what?" said the duckling. "A swan? Me, a swan? Never." "Yes, you're a swan just like us," said all the swans in unison. "Just look at your reflection in the lake, and you'll see." The ugly duckling looked. He couldn't believe his eyes. What stared back at him from the water was the face of a beautiful swan. "Gosh, I'm a swan, not an ugly duckling anymore, but a real swan." And to prove it, he lifted his long, graceful neck and proudly swam across the lake with his new brothers and sisters. He thought he would die with happiness.
roses, a bucket full of posies, a tissue, we all fall down. The king may send his daughter to fetch a pail of water, a tissue, we all fall down.
The robin on the steeple is singing to the people, a tissue, we all fall down. Ring a rosy, a bucket full of posies, a tissue, we all fall down. A tissue, we all fall down.
Once upon a time, there was a young handsome prince whose one ambition was to marry a real princess. One day he set off to find his real princess. He travelled all round the world. He met all sorts of princesses, tall ones, short ones, fat ones, thin ones, happy ones, sad ones, but not one perfect real princess, and sadly he returned home. One night, a terrible storm raged over the castle where the handsome prince lived. Lightning flashed and the thunder clapped, rain beat unmercifully against the castle walls. Suddenly, above the noise of the thunder, the old king heard a tapping on the castle door. There, standing on the doorstep, was a beautiful girl, soaked to the skin. Water poured down her lovely face and formed a large puddle round her tiny feet. The old king gently led the lovely girl into the castle hall. Quietly she told the king that she was a real princess. The young prince and the queen, who had come to see what was happening, couldn't believe their ears. The queen took her by the hand and led her away, saying quietly to herself as she went, "A real princess? We shall have to see about that." The young prince stood and stared after her, totally captured by the young princess's beauty. Dry clothes were found for the young princess, and while she was bathing and changing, the queen went off to prepare a room for her. The Queen told the maids to remove all the bedclothes from the bed, and then she placed a small round pea under the mattress. On top of this first mattress, she placed 20 more, and on top of these, 20 more feather beds. Now we shall see if she is a real princess, said the Queen quietly. Having eaten, the young princess went to bed on top of all the mattresses and feather beds. In the morning, the Queen came to see her to ask if she had slept well. Hardly at all, said the young princess. I don't know why, but I'm black and blue all over. The Queen smiled. She knew why. After all, only a real princess would feel a small round pea through 20 mattresses and 20 feather beds. The handsome young prince was overjoyed when the Queen told him that the beautiful young girl he had fallen in love with was indeed a real princess. A wonderful wedding was arranged, and so that the young real princess could sleep soundly, the small round pea was removed, and to this day it can be seen in the castle museum. That is if no one has since removed it.
Seesaw, Marjorie Daw, Johnny shall have a new master. He shall have but a penny a day, because he can't work any faster.
There was a crooked man,
and he went a crooked mile.
And he found a crooked sixpence upon a crooked stile.
he bought a crooked cat, and it caught a crooked mouse, and they all lived together in a crooked little house.
Once upon a time, a poor, hard-working woodcutter was out in the forest cutting down trees, when Jupiter, the god of thunder, suddenly appeared before him. The woodcutter was very frightened and fell on his knees and begged for mercy. "I have not come to punish you," said the thunder god. "I have come to grant you 3 wishes, as a reward for all your hard work, but think very carefully before you use them." Although very surprised, the woodcutter replied, "Yes, I will," whereupon the thunder god vanished. Poor woodcutter had a wife who was always nagging and moaning at him, and as soon as he returned home from the forest, she moaned,
Here, where have you been? You're late for your dinner. You don't deserve any food. Oh, you're so unreliable. Why can't you earn more money?
To stop her moaning, the woodcutter sat down and told his wife how Jupiter, the god of thunder, had granted him 3 wishes. "Think of it," he said. "We will be rich. You can have all the diamonds, rubies, and money you have ever wanted,"
We must think how to use the 3 wishes very carefully.
said the wife.
We must not waste them on silly things.
They sat down to eat their dinner and to think of how to use the 3 wishes. "These potatoes are nice," said the woodcutter, "but I wish we had some sausages to go with them." Suddenly, a whole string of sausage appeared on the table in front of them.
You silly fool! Look what you've done. You've used one of our wishes on a string of sausages.
"Why don't you shut up?" yelled the woodcutter. "I know I made a mistake, but we'll still have 2 more wishes left." But his wife wouldn't stop her nagging, and the woodcutter suddenly lost his temper. "Will nothing stop your nagging? I wish you had one of those sausages stuck on the end of your nose. That would certainly shut you up." Alas, no sooner had the woodcutter stopped talking when a sausage flew up from the table and attached itself to the end of the nagging woman's nose. The second wish had been granted. How silly the wife looked with the large fat sausage stuck on the end of her nose. How she wailed and cried.
Oh, please,
She sobbed to her husband.
please help me. I can't spend all my life with this sausage dangling in front of my face.
Oh, how she cried. She sobbed and sobbed until her husband couldn't bear it any longer. "Very well," he said. "I will grant you my last wish, to get rid of that sausage for you, but on one condition," sobbed his wife with relief. The woodcutter smiled. "You must promise me never ever to nag and moan at me ever again." His wife was only too happy to agree. So when she had made her promise, the woodcutter made his third and final wish, and as he spoke, the sausage fell from his wife's nose. So the woodcutter never did become rich or famous. He remained a poor, hard-working man all his life. But his wife, who had been so grateful that her husband had spent his last wish removing the offending sausage, well, she kept her word. Not once did she nag or moan at him, so although not rich, at least he lived a quiet, peaceful life.